Hi, welcome to the Los Hermanos podcast.
I'm Tristan.
And I'm Jackson.
And today we're listening to Drinks with Los Hermanos, an original podcast highlighting the journey of community builders. You can listen to this podcast on Spotify, iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, and Facebook. On this episode of Drinks with Los Hermanos, we talk with Sarah Versical, the co-owner of LKV Ventures. Her and her husband Jeff decided to buy a building downtown and wanted to change the landscape forever.
Thanks for stopping by.
How's everybody doing? Welcome to Season 2, Episode 2 of Drinks with Los Hermanos. I am Tristan.
I'm Jackson.
And we are here with Sarah Versical of LKV Ventures.
Yes.
They recently purchased the old hair shed building and plan to do a lot with it. Tonight we're going to learn a little bit about her husband, Jeff, and what they plan to do with Battle Creek.
So thank you for coming on with
Yeah,
us
absolutely.
today,
Thank you.
Sarah. And I'll just start with a hard hitter. What does LKV? Golly, we just went over that. LKV stand for?
Oh man. So LKV is actually named after our cat. We really had a hard time figuring out what we wanted to name our company, and one day I was like, you know what? I really love my cat. I know it's so terrible, but it was like the letters worked out really nice, and so it's after Louis Catini Vuitton Versical, which is always a great story for when people ask. So.
It's a cocktail party story.
Yeah. Yes.
So what is your company all about? Let us know.
So this is our first project. We started our LLC in 2016 in the hopes of finding a building to redevelop into apartments because we wanted an apartment downtown and couldn't find one. So it's like almost 3 years later, we're here and we have our building.
So can you give us a little bit more background about you and Jeff? I know you explained to us in the email, but I thought it was really important to why you guys decided to purchase a building and turn it into...
Yeah, so Jeff got offered a position at Kellogg's in 2016, and he was looking for an apartment downtown, and we couldn't find anything, but we saw these vacant buildings, and we're like, how are there not any apartments? Which I'm sure like a lot of people have had those questions too. So he got in contact with the city. They eventually got him in contact with John Hart. And that kind of started our dream of finding an apartment for ourselves initially. And with my management background in hospitality and his finance background, we were like, why don't we just make our own apartments? And he had a lot of people at Kellogg, and I've had a lot of people coming in that were being relocated to Battle Creek for jobs that are like, yeah, we can't find anything downtown. So we were just like, let's do this. And it's taken a while to get to where we are, but we're here and we're excited. So excited.
That's great.
Yeah.
So where did you guys move from, and did you guys live in have a city living where you guys came from?
So we came from the east side of the state, St. Clair Shores and Harrison Township. I originally went to Western, came back to the east side, and then once Jeff got a position over here, I looked for a position and then got hired in at the Hampton Inn as the general manager there. So that's kind of how we migrated over here. And I already knew what the West Side was all about, but Jeff hadn't, and he truly fell in love with the West Side. We love the East Side, that's our home, but I don't really foresee us going back anytime soon. We just love, the people over here are just so much nicer. It's much more nature. It's just more beautiful, really. The East Side has kind of gotten crazy, so we just love it over here.
Yeah, Yeah, it's much more spread out over here. A little
Yeah.
way back. Even the Grand Rapids area, it's not like you're in Detroit or Metro Detroit
Right.
where everything's crazy.
It's going to take 45 minutes to go to work.
Yes.
It actually might. But
Yeah.
I digress. So, what attracted you to this downtown? Was it close to work, or do you just like the whole city?
So it's a combination of a few things. One, the proximity was great. Obviously, Jeff with working at headquarters, it's like walking distance.
Yeah.
And me, when I was working at the hotel, it's only about a 7 or 8 minute drive. But one of the things that we noticed when we were walking around is how beautiful the downtown area is. Like, it has the perfect infrastructure and layout for a great downtown. We just need the people and the businesses and the housing and all of that to sustain it. And that's really, like, we would come down here and just walk around. I'm like, I say this all the time, and Jeff will probably laugh at me when he hears this, but there are lights in the sidewalks. You don't you don't go to Detroit, you don't go to Royal Oak or Grand Rapids, and you don't see that much love and in money put into the community. So it really was like kind of a given for us. Like, no, we want to do something down here. It was like, we don't want to go anywhere else. We don't want to go to Kalamazoo. We don't want to go to Grand Rapids. Like, we wanted it here. So.
And it's one of the, I remember when they started doing all this work downtown, and there's a lot of negative feedback on it, wondering why the city was wasting money and they needed to fix the roads and all this stuff. The same stuff you hear every year when they're spending money on something besides the roads.
Yeah.
But I think when it was finally a finished product, it really makes downtown look great and appealing to people. You're not going to get people to fill up the big buildings if the infrastructure downtown doesn't look nice.
Absolutely.
So I think that's the first part. There's a lot of people that are very short-term thinking when it comes to things like that, but I'm so happy the city put all that money into how the downtown looks.
And that's honestly being a barista at a coffee shop where people come from out of town, from headquarters, and go right in. That's the first thing they say. They're like, the downtown looks so nice, but why are there so many empty buildings? Yeah. And so, I mean, it is one of those things where it's like, is it the chicken or the egg? But you got to start somewhere, and I think making the infrastructure look nice is a good way to start.
I agree. I mean, you can go to numerous downtowns and they may have tons of restaurants, but if the streets don't look good and you can barely walk because the sidewalk's crumbling, you're not really going to want to walk around.
So what are some of your plans for this building besides the apartments?
Yeah, so we had some really big ideas to start with, and we still do have the end result is to do all of our plans, but we kind of have like a phase 1 and a phase 2 part of our project. The phase 1 is obviously our second floor, where we are going to put in 2 one-bedroom apartments. Where we are right now, which is the commercial space on the first floor, we are hoping to just kind of clear this out and have it the open space for a tenant to come in and use the beautiful commercial space that we have. And then our phase 2 part of the project is to eventually do our third floor into a 2-bedroom apartment, kind of like a large loft that'll span the whole apartment. We originally wanted it for ourselves because we made it such a cool apartment, but we ended up buying a house and having a son. So, that changes things a little bit.
Just a little, yeah.
So, but our goal is still to get all of that done in the next few years. But our immediate is the second floor and the first floor. So,
I know you guys pretty much just started because you officially bought the building. What month?
May,
yeah. So a couple months ago.
Yeah.
What is your estimated timeline?
So we are currently working with the city of Battle Creek to finalize a rental rehab program grant, and that we are in the final stages of that. We're going through a historical review right now through the state, so we're just waiting to get back to them, and then we'll sign contracts for that with our contractor and the city, do a few walkthroughs before we get started. So depending on how quick we get that back, we're hoping to start actual renovations in September.
Not too far on the way.
Yeah, so yeah, I know. Like it's the end of July, so it's a little over a month, I would say. We're hoping to get started sooner, but as you guys know, you just have to kind of go with the flow. So we're hoping to get started in September, and then we want to get the first floor space done as soon as possible, so that we can get a lease signed and get somebody in here so that they can get their renovation started. So that they can be up and running in, November, December time. Before the snow comes is the goal.
That's the weird thing about like construction and like business ownership is a long time doesn't seem like a long time, but then it also feels like a long time. I don't know, it's kind of weird. Like you always feel like you're waiting for something, but then the next thing you know, it's there, and you don't really feel 100% prepared. But it's just one of those weird things.
It is so true because Jeff and I have never done commercial renovations before. We've done he's done personal ones. I've done ones with hotels. But I have a whole team that does most of it for me. So I just, which is great. Could use one of those. But we have come across a few things over the last few months that we're like, oh, we got to work on this and do that. So the time frame that we originally had was to start renovations usually in June. But with stuff with the grant and stuff that we had to make sure that we had getting done, I'm really glad that we've had this time so that we can make sure we're doing everything right. And we have all of our stuff done before we start knocking down walls. The last thing we want to do is start before we should.
So that kind of segues into something I'd like to talk about is the what are the bumps and bruises that you come across that you didn't think would have happened in the beginning?
That's a great question. It really has kind of been a few years of ups and downs. We really went in gung-ho with the project in the beginning, which was 2.5-ish years ago. And then, with Jeff being the finance person, thank God, we were coming to terms with how much it was going to cost to actually renovate and do everything that we need to do to get to the building in a proper state. The building is in great condition. We're really lucky. We have one of the good buildings. The structure, sound, all of that stuff. So we have a wonderful building, and Ken that owned it previously did a really good job maintaining it. So we're thankful for that. But it is still a 100-plus-year-old building. So things were very different back then than they are now. So there's a lot of updates that we need to make in order to be in compliance with codes, and we're going to be changing the scope of the building. So the commercial space will be commercial space, but the upstairs, it went from office to apartment. So we have to do even more once you change the use of the building. So fire suppression was a huge hurdle for us. We have to fire suppress the building. I'm totally all about it. We have people living here. I want them to be safe. Yeah. So I'm 100% all about it, but it was expensive. So we're very thankful that we've gotten to work with the city and, the people that we're going to be using for it to help us with that. Getting everything we need for the grant application for the rental rehab program. It's a wonderful program, and again, without it, we wouldn't be even able to do this. But there's a lot of regulations for it. It's also low income housing, so that's one of the things that I think is really cool for us that we can bring that to downtown, because obviously not everything that's going to be coming in here for apartments or whatever is going to be that. And so we're hoping that lower income housing people have the opportunity to live downtown too. So, but with that, the rental rehab, there have been a ton of obstacles that we've had to go through. We've had to do tons of environmental testing, let in asbestos, which, you know, it's an old building, so you're going to find something somewhere. We're very lucky that whatever has been found, whether it's been outside or inside the building, is minimal.
That's
like
good.
Very minimal, and we're very thankful because I don't think that's been that like that for other projects. So those have been some hurdles. Finding the right bank to work with was a hurdle for Jeff. Luckily I did not have to do that. He did, so thank you. But we've, you know, it's when we started 2 years ago, there wasn't as much buzz as there is now with the downtown. And so a lot of people were like, no, like, you guys are crazy. We're not going to fund you. Your projects, you know, it could go awry any minute, and, you know, there's not a lot of comparisons to justify this money. So Jeff finally got in touch with Deb at Southern Michigan Bank and Trust, and she is amazing. She has been so supportive throughout all of this, and so is their company. And so we finalized, obviously, all of that in May, and they really worked really hard with us to make sure everything works to our advantage and that we're able to do our project. So those were probably the main hurdles. And, you know, there's some probably once a week. There's always a hurdle.
Right.
Like, you guys know, as business owners, like, you come through something, but nothing that has steered us away in 2.5 years. So yeah.
There's always going to be something, and you just got to adapt
Just
and
push
kind of
through.
pivot and go through it.
Yeah, definitely because what we hear a lot is, you know, the city's hard to work with, and our experience has been the complete opposite. And I know, like, John Hart, he's helped us.
Yeah.
We've been part of a program with BC Cargo and the kitchen. He's one of the people I think down here that are helping make a lot of change, because he's more like, okay, how can we make this work? Yes, we have to do this. Like you said, the fire suppression, all that. There's things you have to do, especially with these buildings super close.
Yeah.
But, you know, he's always been the person that has been like, okay, there's a problem. Now, how do we fix it instead of it's instead of saying no right away, it's, oh, that's not going to happen. It's like, okay, well, let's make it a yes.
Yeah. Or how can we get to the yes?
Yeah.
And, you know, we've been, I'd like to think, fingers crossed, we've been lucky as well. Everyone that we have worked with, especially John, I mean, John has been amazing to us too. Like, there are days where I'm like, John, I'm sorry I'm bugging you again. You know, I'm like, for a while, I think you got sick of me. But that's okay. We have found, you know, we were having some minor setbacks with our entryway, because our goal was to make sure that we could have our front entrance be used, that's on the other side over here, as the entryway up to the apartments, because it's a downtown area. You need a front entrance. It is a historical stairway, so we were able to find ways to work with the space that we have instead of having to move an entire wall. That could cost tens of thousands of dollars, because we'd have to move the first floor and the second, and the basement. So it could have been really expensive for us and may not have happened. But we worked with the in-city inspectors, and we were able to figure something out to make it work. And I know that hopefully moving forward, for not just us, but for anybody else, that, you know, like how you guys have been, that they're able to find ways to do that. And we wouldn't have been able to do that if it wasn't for John either, because he's like, we got to figure out a way to make this work. How can we make this work without it being extremely expensive. So yeah, so you know, it's been great. We've had good experiences.
Yeah, I wonder if that perception is from people who don't actually do any of that work and have those interactions. They've just heard from other parties that it can be tough. And I mean, from our experience, if you're serious about doing it and you have the mindset of, okay, how can we make this work, instead of saying, this is what I want to do, and they're like, well, I don't know if that'll work, and you're like, well, they said we couldn't do it, and then because everything that we've done, we've always just asked, okay, so can we do this? And if we can, how can we get there?
And we've had solutions to their no's. I'm like, okay, what if about this? And then they're like, oh, yeah, that'll work.
Yeah, we didn't think of it that way.
Yeah.
Or that's a great... Yeah, I think that's kind of how it's been for us, too. We're like, okay, so if we are able to do this, will it work then? And they've been really receptive. So
I think as long as you have an open mind and don't think of the city and the inspectors and everyone as adversaries, you think of somebody who's... Because they don't want the downtown to be vacant. They want it to be thriving and built up again. So they just need to make sure you do it correctly and safely for everyone.
Absolutely.
Because especially like around here, the buildings are connected. So your building, if your building catches on fire, the next building can catch on fire. So everyone has to be up to code and up to snuff. So I mean, I think you kind of get a different perspective on it when you're putting money into things, and when you're invested into things rather than just looking from the outside.
Absolutely. And I also think, to piggyback on that, if you're willing to work with them, they're going to want to work with you too. If you're putting in the hard work and the money and all of that, they're like, okay, great, this is amazing. Like, let's see what we can do to help. Kind of. So, it's awesome.
So I know that, you know, when we run into roadblocks, it could sometimes be discouraging. What are the things that you do to, you know, keep the blinders on, keep going?
I go golf.
Hey, that's a good.
I really I mean, some days it does happen. Like, we do go. I'm like, I just really need to go smash this ball and go golf and clear my mind. But I think I'm really lucky. Jeff is a great partner when it comes to that, because he's really good at like diffusing me, and vice versa. I'm lucky to have him to bounce ideas from, and you know, we're on the project together, so it's nice that we can both do that. But really, I get mad for probably 5 minutes to an hour, and then I'm like, okay, let's reel it in. You had your time. Now let's move forward with this. Because I think I've learned over the years that it's important to recognize when you are upset or you're frustrated or whatever, and understand that that's okay, but that's not constructive, so you've got to move forward. So that's really what we try to do. Or go.
No point is crying over spilled milk.
Yeah, exactly.
And your that happened today.
Right?
Yeah, no, you didn't say anything. I saw. I was like, oh, okay. Yeah.
And so we, I completely lost what I was going to say. Oh, about escaping for golf every now and then. I think that's something that's a valuable lesson for people, is like, you can get so wrapped up in work sometimes you just need to say, we're done today.
Turn off the phone.
Just
I don't know how you guys do
relax.
it. Like, you guys are always working your tails off.
There's two of us. So
but still, that's still a lot. I mean, we haven't even gotten to construction yet, and I'm like, whew. So I can only imagine.
I mean, like, evenings, I kind of just zone out, and we just, I'll watch TV for a couple hours and then go to bed, or just, last night we just went to bed.
Right.
And just go up and just relax and just kind of shut your brain off for a little bit. And, I don't get to golf as much as I like, because we're open peak golf hours. But yeah, there's all sorts of different ways to unwind and do that stuff. And I think that's really important as a business owner, is because if we've got into it, we've gotten burned out and wrapped up, and you just gotta,
reset.
Yeah, reset. Whether it's like going to concerts and you have a night off, or because you can still work but then relax.
Right.
Like, it doesn't have to be a complete day off or 2 days off or a weekend or whatever.
Yeah, even like a few hours.
Yeah.
It's always nice sometimes.
Yeah,
You're like,
sometimes you just need to
"Oh."
sit and do nothing, or sit and talk to someone about something that's not what you're doing.
Yes.
Like that's a big thing.
Yeah.
And that's why our Saturday and Sunday hours are way condensed. Because A, the traffic's not there yet, and B, we don't have to wake up at 5 in the morning, and then get there at 6. You know, you can roll in at 8:30. That extra 2 hours helps, and
Right.
you know, then we get out at 4, so we got the whole day. We can go.
So we still could go golf if we really wanted to.
You
We
could.
go
You sun
especially
rises
this
at like
summer.
6:30, 6:45.
Whoa, I meant after.
Oh, I'm like, you could totally get in before work too.
Oh no, I know. I cherish my 2 hours extra sleep. I
Yeah.
never thought I'd get to a point in my life where I was like, yes, I get to sleep until 8 today,
Right?
but I'm there.
She's all for the Binder Park 36 holes in a row.
Oh, don't get. We love Binder.
Give me some.
It's a great city asset.
It
Some
is.
White Claws, and I could do that.
Mhm.
Truly's.
You look like a
All
trolley
of
girl.
them.
All right. I guess it's we like to end on 2 questions. The
Yeah.
same 2 questions.
Yeah.
One is, which we kind of talked about. What was the biggest hurdle in or failure? We like using the word failure. Most people don't because they feel it's definitive.
It's scared, and
Yeah.
it's oh, you failed, it's done.
Yeah.
Which we don't see it that way.
No.
So what was your biggest failure or setback that actually propelled you guys forward? And then the second question is for any entrepreneur or professional or anyone in life, what is some of your solid go-to advice that you would give them?
Good questions. Man, one of our biggest setback failures. I can't. Part of me is like, I don't feel like there was one really like terrible, like just like gut wrenching one. But one of them, and you know, to be very candid, recently, one of them that was like, oh man, we should have been a little bit smarter about this, was we forgot to get some of the environmental testing done before that we closed on the building. And it was definitely not something that we considered because we had previous environmental testing done, and we've gone through like a few phases of that, and we thought it was done in that, and it wasn't. So it was really more or less about kind of a reminder that you really need to be super diligent on everything that we're doing. And both Jeff and I missed the mark on it, and it was definitely a little bit of a punch. We've recovered, obviously. We're still here. No, we've recovered from it. We're just working through it, but it really was one of those like, oh, moments.
Yeah.
So yeah, and the other part to that, anything you said, any advice, right?
Yeah,
Or
just
anything.
like your go-to, like somebody comes and asks you something, and so for some advice, is your go-to advice.
One of the things I always feel is if you're really passionate about something, as we are with our project, and I know you guys are with your shop, keep moving forward with it. It took us a really long time to get here. We've had to work through a ton of things on the financial and the back end, but it's all worth it. It really is. And you're gonna have bad days, but your bad days will far outweigh not far outweigh. Opposite. Your good days will far outweigh your bad days. You guys know what I was saying?
Yeah.
I was like, oh man, she's saying it wrong.
We're like, oh, shoot. Yeah, definitely saying it wrong. The good days will definitely outweigh the bad. And if anybody needs help ever, don't hesitate to reach out to people. I think that was one of the huge ones, is we were really trying to do a lot of it ourselves for a while. And people were like, if you need anything, let us know. If you need anything, let us know. And I'm like, no, we'll figure it out. And you're like, okay, well, this is taking a lot longer than it needs to be. Start reaching out. And we did start reaching out to people. People in our community. I've talked to you guys multiple times just about happenings and things. We've talked with Restore 269. We've worked with John Hart. We've worked with our city people, and I've learned that it's really important you do that because you build your community, but everybody is an expert at something. Like I'm not an expert at grant application, but they are. So so that is one that I've tried to really make sure that I'm always doing is reaching out to our community. So.
Excellent. It's the backbone of the networking.
It is.
It's not just handing out business cards and talking to each other. It's actually being able to help each other.
Yeah.
And, like you said, build your community.
Yeah. And honestly, like both Jeff and I have said, and we're already, helping mentor somebody. But if anybody ever needs any advice, any help, wants to hear more about our crazy story, we're open books. Like we want to do whatever we can to help anybody that wants to join us in, help in the downtown area. So.
I like that a lot. It goes back to the saying, it takes a village to raise a child. Yeah. The city's a child, and everybody needs to get together. Yeah. So, what do you have social media? Is that?
We have a Facebook page right now. It's just at LKV Ventures. And once we start renovations, we will be posting everything. We'll post our floor plans, updates, and then we're gonna do kind of like a grand opening house once everything is all up and running. And then once we're in the middle of renovations, we'll start looking for renters and applications for that. So follow us. If you have questions, don't hesitate to reach out. But yeah, that's about it.
Perfect.
Yeah. Once again, thank you for coming on
with
us,
thanks for having
and thank you for investing in downtown and in Battle Creek.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that's all I got. You guys?
Talkers and Tunes, September 14th. We're putting on the best event the North has ever seen. I'm kidding, but it's going to be a great event. September 14th, 12 to 5. There's going to be Minor Element, Monitor Ventures, the Moon Men, Torty Taco, Kitchen Proper, many, many more people. So stop in. That's coming up soon. But that's all I have. So take it easy.